Well, thank you very much. I'm truly honored to be here. First of all, I want to say that while you read on my title, it says Chief Economist. Don't panic. Don't rush for the coffee. I'm really here because I'm a poor country boy from the hills of Pennsylvania. I was born in Clearfield, went to high school in Jersey Shore High School, not Snooki's Jersey Shore, but Jersey Shore High School, Pennsylvania. I grew up in Pine Creek, that's a creek, yes. The Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania. I fortunately went on to Penn State, where I belonged to a fraternity that actually the secretary's father belonged to a few years back. He just celebrated his 80th anniversary at Phi Kappa Tau fraternity at Penn State. Mr. Walker was kind to invite us out to his house several times. And, it was really wonderful. I wear a Penn State tie every day. I've got over 150 different Penn State ties, so if you ever want to know how many different ones, I can tell you what that is. I was picked here also to talk about midstream a little bit, partly because I actually worked on a pipeline as a kid. Down the road to Interstate 81 a ways, I worked on the original major pipeline in the United States, the Keystone, or the Tidewater Oil Line. It's located across Interstate 81 near a small town called Quakeake, if you know where that is, or McAdoo, just outside McAdoo, in Monmouth City and Tamaqua. And so I worked on that. It was a good job. It was the original major pipeline in the United States. So we have a long history in Pennsylvania. That pipeline was developed in 1879 by the independents trying to break John D. Rockefeller's hold on transportation monopoly. So I've got a little bit of pedigree in that. And in terms of the area, my father was a coal miner near the Shamokin area until one caved in on him. And so he went on to a safer line of work, working on a sawmill. So I work on the sawmill too, and other than it's hard work, it's dangerous and doesn't pay much, it's a good job for a youngster. So unfortunately, I turned from an honest line of work to the dark side and became an economist. And so part of my presentation as the visible scientist will be say, we have a lot of opportunities, but we have a lot of challenges. And as an economist, you know, we really always come up with negatives. And so I can tell you my favorite joke about economists is, what's the definition of economist? Well, there are many, but my favorite one is an economist is somebody who's real good with numbers, but doesn't have the personality to be an accountant. The challenges we face are many. But what I'd like to do is, first of all, say, isn't this wonderful when you see this room with everything that's going on here? It's really amazing in terms of what has happened. And as a start to my presentation, I'll show you a slide, which is a few years back. This is June of 1972. Does anybody recognize who's being interviewed? Governor Shap. And the guy holding the microphone is a slightly younger redhead. I got the opportunity of interviewing the governor. This was after the Agnes flood, where we really hit economic bottom in this state, where we already having problems going on, but then when that happened, both in this area, and then this is in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania, at the Piper Aircraft Factory, which is gone, of course. Most other industries was gone by shortly thereafter, and so as a dirt poor kid coming out of high school, you didn't have any opportunity to earn a living. And I was fortunate to go to college, but not everybody was. Well, anyway, just as a joke, I walked up to the governor and said, "Governor, can you ask me some questions?" He kind of looked at me like, that was before he started running for president. But in any case, if you think now, fast forward 41 years, look how things have changed in terms of opportunity in that area of Pennsylvania. Because growing up, I remember seismic crews going up and down all those highways, and I always wondered what they find. Well, now we know. It's just they couldn't develop it until recently. And so it truly is wonderful in terms of what we're seeing. But going forward, we do have challenges, and hopefully we'll get your help in terms of going forward. Now, we have a long history of oil and gas in this state, of course. This is the world's oldest operating oil well, the McClintock #1 well outside of Oil City, Pennsylvania. They run that once a year and sell the oil in the Drake Well Museum. They sell it $2 for a 1-ounce bottle, which works out to about $11,000 a barrel. So if you could get that, you'd be in pretty good shape. There's also another museum in that area, quaintly called Pit Hole, which sells a 1-ounce bottle for $5, or about $27,000 a barrel. So, you know, there are good margins in terms of that. But we've got a long history, and it's good to see that now we've seen oil and gas moving to the east. Because until recently, what we had is oil and gas in the west, coal in the east. And I always wondered, there's got to be hydrocarbons in here somewhere, and now we know. And so what we're seeing is tremendous opportunities. And in terms of midstream development, I think it's going to be very robust. If you look at our data in terms of exploratory and development wells, what we have seen last year, development wells slow down and decline for gas, primarily because of price, and lack of transportation capacity. Exploratory, we're still up 20%. Footage was down a little bit, but what it said is the operators are still trying to find the gas there. They have leases, they've got to drill it and so on. And it tells me that there's a lot more gas that can come forward, but we'll need the facilities to be able to do it, and we'll need a higher price than the $1.90 that we had back in the middle of last year. However, if you look at nationwide, it's true everywhere. So you're competing with a lot of folks around the country in terms of different shale gas plays, whether they be in Michigan and North Carolina or other parts of the country. It's just wonderful how much gas they've been able to discover. And this will mean trillions of dollars of investment, trillions of dollars of revenue, millions of jobs, and just wonderful economic security. It was mentioned earlier about the ability to be able to become energy independent. Between what we can produce in this country, imports from Canada, biofuels, we can. And what people will argue about what that has as a price impact, it means we're paying ourselves. And that means jobs and energy security and so on. That being said, we do have challenges. This is our biggest, where we have basically misinformation campaigns by some people, outright misrepresentations, and so on and so forth, by fundamentally people who don't like fossil fuels, no matter what. I find it's interesting, the title of this is from the New York Post. This just doesn't kill people, it kills the world. Give me a break. But there's no shortage of protesters that we have to deal with. And in terms of midstream development, that's going to be one of the biggest challenges we'll face. Because the folks who oppose fossil fuels development of all types will do everything they possibly can to slow this down. And so what we as an industry need to do is make sure we have everything in order, make sure we have a very focused approach, as was mentioned, in terms of safety and environmental responsiveness and so on. Because at every opportunity, we are going to be opposed, like what's going on in New York State, or what's going on with opposition, for example, the Keystone Pipeline, and on and on and on. And that's really the biggest challenge, and we need your help. We need your help to be able to go out and talk about the reality of what energy is. And yes, we're going to need oil and gas for the foreseeable future. Renewables are wonderful, but their electricity, does anybody here have an electric car? No, you don't plug your car in. You use it for gasoline or jet fuel or diesel or so on. And so we're going to need oil and gas for the foreseeable future. Our oil and gas share right now is 62%. It might decline to 57, 58% in 20-some years. But we're going to continue to need it. So these arguments that you hear from these folks saying, oh, no, we can just easily switch to renewables, just simply don't make any sense in terms of the reality of what we're looking at. So what I'll do is just quickly close, because you all have had a long day so far, and say we have opportunities right now in midstream that are very good, I think, in terms of just looking at the drilling opportunities. But what we're going to need is proper tax policy, and that's going to be a challenge because we have the president proposing higher taxes for the industry in his budget and politically characterizing it as subsidies, which is simply not true. We get to deduct costs. We don't get subsidies. We're going to need proper access policies, both at the federal and state level, in terms of being able to get to these resources. And that's access policies for midstream development, for exploration and development, and so on. And finally, regulatory policy. One of the big things that we're waiting to see is what is the federal government going to do about regulation of hydraulic fracturing. Because the last thing we need is to have another layer of regulation coming in that does nothing other than slow down the development of our resources. We have a wonderful opportunity. I'll close by saying, 40 years ago I started analyzing energy when I was on the Penn State debate team. And the debate topic was resolved the federal government should control the supply and utilization of energy in the United States, as though they could. Well, they tried and they failed miserably. What they ended up doing was raising taxes, reducing production in the industry, destroying jobs, and then pouring the money down the drain of things that didn't work. Those of you who are old enough remember gas lines because of bad price and allocation controls. We had a whole host of other restrictions on natural gas that you couldn't get proper pricing, and so we had shortages for no good reason. And so let's not repeat those mistakes. Because for the first time in 40 years, we have moved from a case of energy scarcity to energy abundance. And that's wonderful in terms of all the things that you've heard so far. But we've got to do it right. And so we're going to need your help. And so with that, I'll stop, and thank you very much for having me.